Hey there, Independent Scientologists. Discover a new perspective to your bridge by visiting ao-gp.org. Get in session with remote auditing using the Theta Meter. Are you curious about where you stand? Head on over to ao-gp.org now and take our free personality test. Join the growing group of independent Scientologists today.
Hi, and welcome to another AOGP Scientology Outside of the Church podcast. This is season 9, episode 8, episode 99.
Huh.
99.
On YouTube or in total?
Just in total, not just on YouTube. And then there is the lost first season, which would put us over 100. I think there was probably 15 or 16 of those, but since they're lost, we started over, and here we will. There's a couple of them, but they're not worth publishing, in my estimation. They're contextual, and they're what, 14 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So this one is going to be about the reactive mind and the myriad number of ways that it manifests itself that you may or may not be aware of, but we will illuminate you on that it does and that you have experience, and you'll go, oh yeah, that's that what that is. Okay. So this is the brainchild of Scientology Girl. I'm here with Arthur Mudakis and Scientology Girl as usual. And I think Scientology Girl has some really good talking points on this. So I'll let her have her take the lead on this one.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking that we haven't actually, well, I haven't been a part of a podcast where we sort of illuminated on all the various ways the reactive mind can present itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people who are very new to Scientology might find it surprising because sometimes, there isn't always that awareness, right? So you might not even realize something is a thing until it is. So I think a good way to go about it would probably be to take the Scientology bridge thing and have a look and see, on each level what it addresses, because that's
well, in that case, we both look at Arthur and go, tell us about reactivity and the purification rundown.
I think the whole thing, start to finish, is reactive.
How's it been going, Arthur?
And oh my God. So there's a saying I learned years and years and years ago, even pre-Scientology and before I explored the reactive mind, reacting versus responding. And so I'm on constant responding mode.
Responding, you're filtering.
As in, I'm having to be analytical about everything before I open my mouth.
Right. Right. So what how would you describe reactivity from a purification rundown aspect as far as the reactive mind goes? What's been the biggest thing?
I think the intensity of it. So today, for example, yesterday I was okay, but then today, increasing my niacin, when it turns on, it's a full body consuming experience. It's like my whole body just sort of goes through this weird sensation while it's turning on, and I can't put my finger on it. There's no logic to it, so I'm not in a position where I could even say, okay, it's related to this, and then therefore I can work with that. It's just on, and it just affects your whole body. It affects your mood. It affects, like, I'm just like out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And my patient levels.
Would you say, when you say it, what is it? What is it? Is it the restimulation of
something
residual?
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. Yeah, it's the restimulation of some substance in my body that just wants to come out, and it's so frustrating that it's not come out, and it just sits there. It sits there until it comes out. So you're sort of riding around with this I don't know, blanket of something on of you, distorting all your abilities in a sense, including being logical, including being patient, including being happy and joyful and just relaxing. It's I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, but there's just something there that when you get turned on by some substance or some chemical inside of your body, and it just aberrates the crap out of you. And so I'm just in constant, even coming home, traffic drives me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, a dear friend I was talking to this morning, and I just didn't have the patience. I'm like, I'm sorry, I got to go. Even Karen is in with a sauna with me, and I'm just, I just need to shut my eyes and just nothing,
Mm-hmm.
just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it affects you quite a lot, this reactive mind thing.
Right. Now that would bring us to the objectives on the grade chart and reactivity.
Mm.
And interestingly enough, this is sort of a passive, because the objectives, which are physical in the physical universe, auditing processes where you're doing things with the body and objects, and it brings you into present time, and and allows you to be controlled so that the auditor can audit you and you can control your body. So a good example of, in a passive way, of reactivity with the reactive mind would be, you're not in present time. You drift off, you think about other things, you can't focus. And
Mm.
you're born that way, maybe not in all cases, but the older you get, it might get a lot worse. And that is what the objectives handle, is that side of reactivity. So that's what they handle. And then the Scientology drug rundown is handling effects of drugs as well, that pull in mental masses after that. And you key
Makes
those
a lot of sense, that.
you key those mental masses out. You don't erase them. That's on the neurodynetics drug rundown, that you erase the engrams of drugs. So one could loop back and say, what's being partially run out on the pure for you is engramic, secondary, and lock Thynex derived things. So
Mm.
that brings us
And
to.
it's interesting you say that, because a lot of things do come up,
Mm-hmm.
but they're flashes of memories, just situations, but
Mm-hmm.
they can run so rapidly. By the time you're onto the next one, you've forgotten the first one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah,
really
because
interesting.
they just happen so fast. It's like something you would see in a TV show or motion picture,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yes.
Flashbacks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In a sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Scientology girl, you look like you were going to say something.
I was just thinking that's really interesting, because, yeah, I mean, I'd love to actually understand the mechanism behind that, because obviously, like, I haven't done the drug rundown or the purif or anything, because I haven't needed to,
Drug history.
right? So,
Mm.
although I will say that I've always felt like, because of the fact that I've obviously taken painkillers before, and there's been nicotine in my life, and also even alcohol as well,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe, it should have
Yeah.
been a thing, because they
Yeah.
they are drugs.
Mm.
Yeah. We could do one anytime you want.
No, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to experience what I was experiencing. Are you nuts?
That's what everybody says.
Well, my skin is
I
a
said
lot
it
smoother.
before I did mine.
My teeth seem a lot healthier. My eye color is coming back brighter. There are spots just appearing and then disappearing. I get these little bubble sacks of fluid, and then it just in my skin, and then it just disappears. And it's been quite a ride. So physically, it's the change is noticeable,
Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah, you
noticeable.
look a lot younger.
But I, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's like, because you're so overwhelmed, you kind of forget who you are or who you were. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's really odd.
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's such a hard thing. Yeah, It's such a hard
Right.
thing to
Well,
explain this
I mean, there
process.
is an occlusion, really, you know.
Well, and that is the thing, is that there is an occlusion, a hefty occlusion that occurs because you don't know what you don't know. Unconscious incompetence on what it is that you're dramatizing in life, that is reactivity. And before, if we continue forward from a grade chart perspective, what were some of the things that you wanted to cover in that, as far as that goes?
What goes? Sorry.
Reactivity,
Oh, I was
reactive mindset.
in general.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of all kinds of things. Like the last podcast that we did, we covered a few things, and then that made me think, hey, yeah, we could totally do a podcast on reactivity. So if I had to summarize, I'd say things like service facsimiles, hidden standards, um, even robotism, PTSness. There's so many different things and manifestations of the reactive mind,
Mhm.
and ultimately, it's like a lot of these things, you do completely unaware. So, for example, in my own life, at some stage I was what our unhab oh, I think I wasn't officially, like, we don't have a diagnosis, and my auditor didn't tell me, but I read about it and I was like, yeah, I think that's what's happening. And after that, I completely recovered my beingness upon spotting it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was the robotism thing.
Mm-hmm.
um which I'm going to try and remember, but basically it's where you're afraid to commit overages and basically take responsibility for them, so you kind of just stay stuck. You don't you do as little as possible because you're in that fear state, and I think that is caused uh well, it can be one of two things, but I think honestly it's obviously our Hubbard makes everything about personal responsibility, but I do think that sometimes there's a bit of a gray area in that, okay, yes, you were to blame, and that's how you're going to get better, is by seeing, not to blame, but by seeing that you had choices and you just didn't make the right ones.
Yeah.
However, there is an element of the other person as well. Now, addressing the other person isn't going to solve your problems, no. But I found that when I realized that I was doing this because this person was just a toxic individual in my life, I was like, okay, well, I know what to do now. Just don't associate with that toxic person. And that is how I feel like
Mm,
I got out of that mode.
Mm-hmm. Well, it could be said in non-Scientology nomenclature that robotism is a severe case of walking on eggshells.
Yes, exactly.
That's
yeah.
really what
And then also
it.
what happens,
Go ahead.
sorry, and then also what happens with two beings that have choice come together as well.
Yeah, yeah. You might explain that
Yeah.
so the listeners
Yeah.
understand that a little bit. What do you mean by
Well,
that?
if I think if what I'm understanding correctly from Scientology girl is okay, she has her beingness and then somebody else has their beingness and they both make choices. Now, if one person makes a choice that's harmful to the other person, does that mean the other person chose that?
Well, there's the like we mentioned in countless other podcasts that
I'm going to say yes.
Hubbard says, being there and communicating is the only thing you could be guilty of. So
Yeah. And you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe if it's one instance, okay, fine. But if it's if it's a pattern and you're failing to address it, that's completely 100% on you, because
Yep.
you can choose whether or not to be with that person or not.
yeah, and I think it's fair to mention, and we haven't talked about this yet, but there's robotism. Let's say there's robotism on a particular dynamic, like well, this is funny. LRH says that a person can come up with the item me as their item for who they're a potential trouble source to, and he says just leave it. Now there's a reason for that comes up later on up the bridge. And then you have PTS item as somebody that you're related to in a family or a second dynamic. There's a PTS item. It could be people in a group or a friend, that type of a thing. But robotism is and I'm sure you'll probably chime in on this. So you, Arthur, is robotism on the third and fourth dynamic is a huge issue
Mm-hmm.
reactively modern day, especially, and we've mentioned it before in podcasts, post COVID.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
Mm,
there's an
yeah,
awful lot of
yeah,
suppression going on in the third and fourth dynamic right now. I mean, I mean, there. I mean,
People are not living.
people. Yeah, yeah. And I
yeah.
thought about we were culling a list of podcast subjects, and one of the things that popped into my head, and I'd have to do a little bit more research on it, and I know it's in his lectures and stuff, is freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
freedom to freedom to and I'm looking at it from the American standpoint. I
Mhm.
can't speak for Australia or England, but
Oh, it's bad here. Yeah,
freedom to assemble.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, these things are a big thing. And as of, was it yesterday, uh in England, there was an official that said, we will extradite you if you say anything about what's going on here in England, and prosecute you. And I just thought, is he smoking crack? I mean, really?
Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah. And if there's one person, and this is why I say, the third and fourth dynamic, if there's one person that thinks that, and you see it bubble up in the media, then there's got to be an awful lot of them out there.
yeah, yeah. You have the right to do what we tell you to do.
Right. So that's another thing, is your PTS to whatever the society's norms are. And this is where you get shaming on social media platforms. This is, I mean, the my generation, Instagram isn't that important. Your generation, Instagram isn't that important.
Think
But
of the reactivity that we had about masks. How we were literally
yes,
watching people. I'm not even talking about the officials that have to do their job. I'm talking about other people ganging up on other people because of their refusal to do the system's way. So it's like, I tell you, there's so much control on this planet, and I don't feel like it is necessary. Yes, I do feel like there's bad people, but I feel like the more we kind of give in to these other determinisms, is the more that we sacrifice just our innate beingness. I mean, if we're naturally good beings, why is there so much control out there?
well, and that's,
Well,
go ahead, Artie.
and that's where the reactive mind comes into it, doesn't it? Because it actually puts a place of people into reaction, very much so, especially if one's restrained somehow. Um, the reactiveness just goes through the roof. Um,
Well, and they know
it's
how to
like
push our
being
buttons on it
caged.
too.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at, I mean,
Well,
again,
yeah,
the whole
because
COVID situation, it was just, the media was just constantly pushing that narrative. You
Yeah.
must be scared. You must stay at
Yeah. The
home.
largest
People
social
are
and that's
just
experiment
just
ever.
one
crazy.
situation.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's just one
Insanity.
situation. There's a whole bunch of situations going on. The war of the sexes at the moment, homosexuality, transgender, money, um, all these things. Like it's not just one topic. COVID was the most obvious and the biggest one, but what about all the final ones that are running in the background around it as well?
Yeah, the Machiavellian
There's a
stuff
lot
with
going on.
race and religion and all of that. I mean, these. I mean,
All that,
Divide
yeah,
and conquer.
yeah, divide and conquer.
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
Machiavellian theory is all about. Is, these are points of reactivity that have been around forever, forever.
Mm,
And um, reactivity is not affinity, reality, communication, and understanding. It is the opposite.
Yeah. And before we get to getting, too much on the negative side,
Yeah.
just for our listeners to know that the good news is that L. Ron Hubbard says that if you uh, that which you understand, you
Hmm.
cannot be at the effect of. So if you understand the reactive mind, and you
mm,
understand like that there are people out there that are actively trying to cause your reactivity. I mean, even when you look at even something as simple as in shopping centers and stuff, or let's say ads on like TV or whatever.
Mm.
They're using our reactivity against us, because if you had this,
Yeah.
then you wouldn't be this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's safe to say that that third and fourth dynamically, the reactivity that you experience is still only your own reactivity.
Mm,
It's just that it's flowing over into these other dynamics, and that's where the problem lies. Is they know you, and you know it's fair to use the word trigger because it causes you to shoot off in some direction and react instead of, like Arthur said at the beginning, you know, respond analytically.
yeah.
But if you understand what's
Hmm.
going on and you've been illuminated in these areas, it's a lot, well, it's a lot easier to not be the adverse effect of something. And that's the big thing. That's what reactivity is being the adverse effect. And that brings us back to um, that which you respond to and how you respond.
Yeah. I really
Well,
think,
what is the reactive mind?
Well,
What's
who
an
wants to
example
answer that?
of like a reactive mind?
Well, it's something that was installed in order to facilitate survival, and it went wrong, and then was used as um, well, just like it is on this planet. It was used to push people in directions that they wouldn't ordinarily go, to get them out of the way so that they were no longer a hindrance to others who felt that they didn't have a reactive mind when they actually had a worse reactive mind than the people they were trying to control with it.
I feel like I wouldn't say the reactive mind. However, I think a little bit of fear is healthy, because, you know, I mean, in order to escape situations and stuff, you need to have that adrenaline, and that adrenaline helps your heartbeat, and it controls, you know,
Well,
functions
yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah,
So,
it's, you got to react or you're dead.
right,
That's how it is in nature.
exactly.
But you know, this is something else that was. I mean, you know, it's what if the body didn't have pain? Well,
Mm.
a species would have,
We'd all be soup.
the species
Yeah.
would have long since been gone, and we would not be having this conversation, because it is a
Yeah.
driver, a motivation in every direction. And along with
Mm.
that, you have all of the stuff that goes on in the endocrine system in the body. So
Mm.
it makes sense. But the thing is uh
We
if
tend to take it too far.
you tend to take it too far, and you, oh, danger, 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 and then you react, and then you do something you regret later.
Yeah. I mean, and then there's,
Mm.
I mean, another example would be, I don't know what the Scientology term for this is, but, you know, things like generational trauma. So, like, you know, if you were spanked as a kid for doing something like asking questions, which I, for example, was, then, you know, later on in life, if you have kids, there's a chance that you're going to do that simply on the basis of reactivity, not because it's logical at all. Because, I mean, if a child is trying to communicate, you know, communicate with them, let them know why something is or isn't right.
Right.
But unfortunately, a big thing, and I don't know if it's all across the world or if it's just here in South Africa, but a big thing is that communication from a child to an adult can be seen as A, disrespectful, and B, back chatting, which
Yeah.
is
Mm.
stupid to me.
You talk back to
Exactly.
talk to your mother that way.
And
There
they're
are
taught
so many
behaviors,
ways.
definitely.
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
so
And
many
not
ways
only are
in
they
which it
taught, but
happens.
they become reactive. You know,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
really struggle to break that chain and be analytical, like actually think about what they're saying. So I think the whole thing with the reactive mind is it's completely unconscious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
In a
and
sense,
then that,
you just do it without even knowing you're doing it.
Yeah, you're
yeah.
kind of like a little monkey that, you know, sort of hops around, and, you know, it's a stimulus response kind of a thing, instead of, you know, using logical and analytical reasoning to solve problems.
Well, and the opposite of what of your example is, you know, reactivity is also, I'm going to raise my children different than my parents did. And then you go
Mm,
the entire
mm,
opposite direction in that swing,
Mm.
and then they're just uncontrollable brats.
Yeah, and then you get to puritanism, which is like, I'm going to raise my kids perfectly and they never, and they, yeah, like you said, brats. I mean, I heard that if you give a child too much praise, there is a chance that narcissism can actually happen. So,
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. I mean,
Yeah.
just generationally, I mean, when I was a kid in the 70s and stuff like that, you see the memes on on Facebook and TikTok where we went out on big wheels and didn't wear helmets and went outside and played because there was no such thing as a smartphone, and a stick and a rock was entertainment for hours, type of a thing. And then you get
Mm.
into, well, I mean, we've all seen the videos of these reactions when parents take away their kids' phones.
yeah. Oh my
Reaction.
gosh.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, you
Yeah.
just look at
Yeah.
that and just go, there's absolutely no way that would ever occur in
Yeah.
my home with a kid.
Right.
And you have to, and this is an important thing, is reactivity is based off of the sources that feed it.
Mm,
And too
Mm.
much information raises the opportunity for reaction to aberrations that are either put there by some other party or the child themselves. And that can just become from group aberration from the company that they keep, that they know online, that they've never, I mean, there's a difference between a Facebook friend and a real life friend.
yeah. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to touch on that. The thing you said about group reactivity. So in South Africa, now obviously I'm an animal lover, and I think that if you're a decent person, you just naturally love animals, or else maybe you're a fucking sociopath. But however, though, um, in South Africa, I tell you, when it comes to animals, there are some people that are so reactive. It is completely like it doesn't make any sense at all.
You talking like the people that
Same
tell
here.
you how to take care of your pets?
Same here.
Yes. And they want to know if you give your
Yeah.
cats milk because it's healthy for them. But if you actually look, your vet is always going to tell you, no, don't use milk for them because it bloats up their tummies and
Mm-hmm.
it's not good for them.
Right.
Right. This is a human thing that we've,
Same with children.
yeah, exactly.
Usually
Mm.
that know best, which
Yeah.
is reactivity.
Exactly. And it I mean, I'll tell you guys a story, and then afterwards I actually realized, hey, this isn't my reactivity. This is just, well, it's my reactivity, but it's coming from an outside source. But doesn't it always though, really?
Well, and that's exactly what I was saying, that it's dependent upon the things you run up against that you either think are normal or are aberrated. And if you haven't run up against it before, you don't realize that it's reactivity and you adopt it yourself,
R-
which is the really
Mm.
dangerous thing about the reactive mind. Go ahead.
right. So like
Mm.
and I just, to that point, I also want to say, I mean, even things like TV and stuff, they
Mm-hmm.
they they are perfect examples of implants of how uh there's like this imaginary general consensus of how you should behave when XYZ happens. And
Right.
it's not your ideas. It's just that they're put there, and then you think back. I mean, think of all the movies that you've ever watched, just as one example, let alone social media or music, etc.
Mm-hmm.
That you have these ideas, and then you've got to follow through the same scenario, like the westernized videos and stuff like that, especially. Like, I mean, it's honestly crazy. But anyway, back to my story. Um, so so I had a situation where there was this vet, and sorry, no, it was actually an animal welfare society thing. So uh we went there and we wanted to adopt a dog, but we didn't meet the criteria. But at the same time, in front of people, she was pretty reactive, and she basically said, look, it's just not going to happen. After we filled out the application and we were supposed to get the animal and stuff like that, so there was a bit of an investment there already, at least emotionally. Anyway, so I carried that, sort of this am I a good pet owner kind of a thing for a while, because yeah, it was just something that, I don't know, it was weird. Anyway, so basically, whenever I would do something for my pets, I would try and, make extra sure that they were okay, that they were fed, that they were whatever. And when things weren't exactly aligned or something, I would freak out. So the one day, one of the I think one of the cats got out or something, or whatever, which, it happens, cats get out. And we used to, at our old place, let the cats just roam free. So but then over here it started becoming a big thing, because one of our cats had actually gotten an injury from getting out. So we decided, okay, we're just going to put them in the catio, leave them inside anyway. So somebody had left a window open in the bathroom, and that's probably how the cat got out. And I freaked out. Like, I can't explain to you the amount of freaked outness that that I experienced that day. But I'm not like that from day to day. Like, that was like a 10, and I'm usually like, I don't know, 0, 1 sometimes, or whatever. So it just shows you that, other people, they can sort of get inside your head and make you feel bad and give you out lists. I think that's really what it came down to. I had an out list thinking I was a bad pet owner, so I was trying to prove myself the whole time.
Mhm.
I'm a good pet owner. I'm a good pet owner. I must. And I also felt like, at that point in time, the people that I was living with didn't really have the same considerations. But how would they? Because it was my out list, not theirs. And so, yeah, I kind of just exploded on that
Well, and that comes from evaluation and or invalidation,
invalidation. Yes, yeah,
and that those are the primary tools that every human being uses on anything else, is
yeah,
they evaluate and they invalidate it. And so you were thinking, because of this particular person at animal welfare, that would be like the is it
SPCA.
SPCAA and in
Yeah,
the United States type of a thing, that you were this bad person, and now you were walking on eggshells, and it was kind of a case of robotism.
yeah, yeah. It was.
Now I'm supposed to, because this person said blank.
Yeah, and then you think of every single other time that you might have not done something right, or maybe you walk in the passage and you actually accidentally kicked one of them, or something. You didn't get everything perfect.
Right.
Like,
And then
there's
that's involuntary,
yeah,
un solicited overts. I mean, the
right,
physical universe, you're going to commit overts whether you like it or not. You're going to be someplace and kick a cat or whatever.
yeah,
It's going to
exactly,
happen, and then you're going to evaluate and invalidate yourself. And you mentioned out lists.
yeah,
I probably need to word clear that for
yes,
our
do
listeners,
that.
but an out list is where somebody says, or you say to yourself, and I'm just giving you an example, an out list. The listing question in Scientology is listing and nulling is what it's called. It's the most powerful technology that we have. And it's the only time that an auditor evaluates for a pre-clear, because the pre-clear is given the auditor the answer and the meter acknowledges it. Well, you get an out list when somebody says, "What's wrong with you? I'll tell you what's wrong with you, Billy. You're a no good piece of shit."
Mm,
And then that sticks with them, and they start thinking, I'm a no good piece of shit, and it's a wrong item. And this can really screw with somebody. I mean, really screw with somebody. It can make them sick. It's part of suppression in the potential trouble source technology. And so out lists can LRH says there's no more concentrated hell than an out list. So that's part of reactivity as well. And it's at the very core of it, because it restimulates so much in a being
mm,
and causes you to, again, walk on eggshells and be a robot, because now I'm supposed to. Whereas you were walking in a straight line when you started life, all of a sudden you're walking through a labyrinth, and you're having to take a right and take a left and go this way, and you have to go around in circles to get over here back. And that's aberration. Is it's a non-straight line, because now I'm supposed to do this if I'm going to survive.
yeah. And something that I figured out late was that the reactive mind tries to operate off of absolutes.
Yeah.
it's not there are no gray areas. It's not analytically like, okay, if I do this, these might be the directions. The reactive mind is, if I do this, this is the direction that's going to happen.
Mhm.
And it shuts out. It's really like that whole, unawareness thing, basically.
Mhm. Well, and that's reactivity is what if you knew it was wrong with you, it wouldn't be wrong with you, and it's below your awareness, because if you knew what was wrong with you, you wouldn't do it. And that's what auditing handles, is you don't even realize you don't do it anymore because you don't react to it anymore.
Right.
You do something completely different. Hardy, you look like you had something you were
Stewing on.
stewing on.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because the body can't reject anything. So it sees it, hears it, thinks it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
been
and you're
inputted.
compelled by it too.
You can't, yeah, you can't undo any of it. And so it's like, imagine you're in a situation where, I don't know, I mean, a real common one, let's say with traffic, where somebody cuts you off. In films, it's quite a popular theme where somebody cuts you off and it's like, oh, hey, how you going? And then they beat the crap out of them.
Mhm.
And,
Mm.
for somebody that doesn't know how to handle themselves in such a situation, what card are they going to draw? They're going to
Mhm.
draw the one that they know, that they've seen on TV, even
Yes.
though it's fictional. But it's an answer to solve their problem. Or another really common one is, that I see repeated in films all the time, when couples go through breakups,
Oh God,
then
yes.
one of their a group of their friends are like, well, we need to get you completely drunk, and let's
That
get
is a
you
great
laid, and then you
example.
can get over him. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, that is such a common theme. And how often do you see that actually spread into society as well? It's like the two most unhealthy approaches to work through your trauma, in a sense.
Mhm.
You've had a massive experience. Your whole world's been turned upside down. Oh, let's just get you drunk and go and have a good fuck, and you'll be done.
And
Like, give me a freaking break.
yeah. I was the teenager that would cry my heart out into a pillow while listening to sad music. Pretty pathetic. Like there's no like, okay, after once this happens, what you're gonna do is you're gonna do something healthy. Like join a gym or work on your nutrition. Or no, it's just, if this is happening, you've got to do something negative, and they exploit the fuck out of that.
Yeah,
You look
it
at
takes you from bad and then takes you worse.
yeah, I
Like,
mean,
it's
even
insane.
cigarettes, when life feels I mean, this is literally the command. When life is going to shit, have a cigarette. You see at the end of the movie or whatever, the guy walks away from the big
Yes, yes.
explosion and shit, lights up a cigarette, and he's cool as fuck, kind of a thing. And it's bull.
Well,
Yep.
the funny thing is with, I mean, back in the day, if we went back, oh, I don't know, 120 years before motion pictures, and all that people had were books. Did people do the same thing with books? Were they as reactive
I
with books?
I
Well,
don't see
thank
why
God
not.
they didn't do the thing with the Bible. Like, I mean, sorry, I should probably not
Well,
go there,
that's
but
created a
really,
lot of reactions.
Leviticus.
I reckon
uh,
Shakespeare. I reckon Shakespeare kicked things off in a big way. And I actually believe a lot of this actually started in his generation, because it was him that made. He's kind of like the seed to film, in a sense.
Yeah, well, he was the soap opera writer of the day, and
Mm,
there is a lot of valid data that the Bard Shakespeare was actually Sir Francis Bacon. Look that up.
mm,
and
okay.
and and that brings us to why is it that people need drama for entertainment?
it's for stimulative.
Yeah, but do you see what I mean?
People
That
don't like being ecstatic. That's the honest
right,
truth.
and if you get
Well,
back
we
to
can
the
all relate
axioms,
to it too.
right, so
It's very relatable.
yeah, you see a movie, and in the script in the movie, the guy says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Don't worry about it. I saw this in a movie."
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
there you go. You just validated the thing that you're using to teach people
Yeah,
things.
that's right.
I just saw it in a movie, and that's the MacGuffin that solves the whole movie is they tie a bunch of this or that together and blow something up, I mean, and then you get shows like what was it? The two guys who were kind of scientific and they were engineers, and they said, okay, we're going to disprove the movie Jaws, and they said this is what happens when you shoot an air tank with a gun, it doesn't blow up.
Yes.
Because I mean, you're making a story with an ending that is
No, not Penn and Teller.
no,
No.
yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it was on the Discovery Channel, I believe, and they disproved it that it doesn't blow up. I mean, at least in their
Oh,
experiments, the
Mythbusters.
Mythbusters,
Yes.
that's
There
what
you
it
go.
was, right? So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, yeah.
myth. But the things that LRH says on OT7 is he says it ruins movies for you,
Mm.
and it
Mm,
does. It ruins movies for you
it
because
does.
there's no reactivity there anymore. In the first few minutes, not all the time, I pretty much figured the story out, unless it is written very, very intelligently.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
no reason for the drama because the drama is the game, right?
Yeah.
well,
Keeps the
after all the
Freedom's
things you
various
guys
purposes.
right.
have yeah,
So then
after
is
all the things you guys have experienced through knowing the reactive mind and Scientology, how do you guys go watching films now?
Oh, I mean, Christ, it takes us hours to watch something that I think is worthy of watching. And same for you.
yeah, I get bored from
Ugh.
99% of movies.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
shut more stuff off than we do finish because we're just like, ugh.
Yeah, and
Because
and with series, I can maybe watch 2 seasons before it's like, okay, they're just using the same plot over and over and over again in a
Yep.
different way.
Yep.
right, and the thing is that describes a composite being pre-clear existence. Because you just keep doing the
Mm.
same thing, and I'm not using Hubbard's definition. It was I think it was Einstein. Isn't that right? Or did we disprove that? Did
What did it say?
Einstein say that? Doing the same thing and expecting different results? I think we
Oh,
went to
It's
that.
mixed
insanity.
reviews. I think
But
I think some
yeah,
people believe that he didn't say it, and then yeah.
yeah. Well,
But it's a good quote.
the expression doing the same thing and expecting different results. Well, it all comes down to why is somebody reactive? Because they think it's survival to do so.
Yeah, but
Mm.
I don't think a lot of it is also at that point in time. I don't think people know that they don't
No, it's
have to do it,
yeah. But I mean, it's
and
completely
and I don't think they know that they are doing it.
yeah. They're unaware of it, or they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
I mean that's the case, and when you're watching a movie or watching a TV show, like you say, after 2 seasons, you're like, why are you doing the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like in Dexter, for example, the last episode, people are disappointed because their disbelief is no longer suspended that this isn't the same thing, and it doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't pattern after all these seasons of his dark passenger and what he's going to do. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but but that's the thing that blows TV shows is like you say, they can only do the same thing so much, and then if they stray too far outside of it, they go, well, they've lost the pattern of the show.
Mm.
Doesn't
I
make it
think,
that doesn't make any sense either,
and I read something that said that Breaking Bad was like one of the most loved series of all time.
Mhm.
And I can honestly say that I found Breaking Bad completely, well, okay, maybe not completely, but very unpredictable.
And I think that's why it did
Yeah.
so well is that
Yes.
you couldn't predict what was going to happen, and that's where excellent
Yeah.
storytelling comes
Yeah.
into play. And
That's also why I
I
enjoy
still
anime.
swear that was written by Scientologists. I swear
yeah,
it was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and because it is a slow progress of your overts catch up with you type of a thing. We just watched El Camino for the first time, and it came out in 2019. Just finished
Oh,
it the other day, and what happens to Jesse Pinkman and all this stuff, and then his past follows him and all that. But and we haven't even watched. Well, I've watched a few episodes of Better Call Saul, but we haven't finished that one either. But yeah, I mean that's excellent storytelling.
It
Is where
doesn't
you
kick
can't
off
predict it.
till like season 3.
Yeah, I
Season
didn't get
3
to
in Better
season
Call
3.
Saul.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the first 2 seasons really build up the story, and then it all just comes together. It is the creativeness is just
mm-hmm.
incredible around Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Mm-hmm.
It's super creative, and psychological too in many many ways. Like you can't help but reflect on yourself in certain things
Yeah. Well, I mean,
when watching shows like that.
yeah. Saul was well, Saul. What was his real name? The character's real name?
Um,
The
I'm not
attorney.
sure what his real name is.
Yeah, but I mean, they built it up to where he was completely a robot to his brother, who was an attorney,
Mm,
Mm.
completely, and
mm.
his brother was a nutcase, living in the
Yeah,
dark, no electricity, foil
yeah,
blanket,
that's right.
all that stuff. So I mean, it's art imitates life, or life imitates art, and
Mm.
it's through reactivity. What if you were to tell a story without a reactive mind?
Oh, that story would just not exist. Because you've got to have
Yeah,
freedoms,
it'd be
barriers, and
boring.
purposes.
Well, I mean,
Mm.
is there still is there still a hero and an anti-hero in a non-reactive mind situation?
I don't think so. Because, like I said, the reactive mind operates off of absolutes,
Oh,
absolute hero, absolute villain.
Hardy?
here's one for you. So when it comes to films, when it comes to the hero and the villain, right? This is something I've noticed lately, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the heroes seem to be more reactive than the villains are. The villains know exactly what they're doing. They've created this massive plan. They're non-reactive in their approach. Yet the heroes, on the other hand, are full reactive minded. Something's going on. Let's get them. Whereas the criminals like, oh, you fell into my trap. They were very analytical about their approach. Yet the hero in most stories is all analytical, and they're all doing it for the same reason, for the greater good or something, even if it means killing. Right? Yet the
Closer.
villains
Mm-hmm.
are completely analytical. They've chosen to do what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're very aware of who they are,
They think it's for the greater good in a
and
lot of cases.
in their
No one
own way,
answers.
yes.
Yeah.
So, who's the real villain, the hero or the villain?
I think here's what I think. Okay, so this comes from actually a lot of study into what makes bad people, whether you want to call it narcissism or SPs or villains or whatever. Um, it comes down to they're not in the correct valence. So even though the presentation is that they're certain and they're analytical and stuff like that, I mean, I had this conversation with somebody else. They were like, why do bad guys always get ahead? And I'm like, well, they have certainty, right? So when you've committed so many overts, because it's easy to commit an overt, right? You have built up so much certainty that, hey, I'm an asshole. And so, I mean, it would be 100% completely reactive to want to destroy things in a negative sense, obviously, because I know that there's an element of destruction that's healthy. But in this case, if you want to kill people, if you want to destroy cities and stuff like that, there's no good purpose for it other than more power, which again is ego driven, which is again not analytical. It is very much a reactive thing because if I guess this person has decided that they're solid and the only way to survive is through destruction. Whereas I do understand that the heroes might seem like they're reactive, but they always win, don't they? So
Well, and that brings up a point that I think that should be made, and there's two of them actually. Like when I was a kid and I watched Scooby Doo, I realized early on that it was always the new character that they introduced early on in the episode who was the bad guy. And that
Mm-hmm.
totally blew Scooby-Doo for me, because that's how you tell a story. Whereas in life, you get where I'm headed with this? In life,
Yep.
you don't necessarily, it doesn't follow the pattern of a story of suspending your disbelief, character development, the three parts, first, second, third acts. You don't get that. You don't see who the bad guy is in lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. You might not know who the bad guy is, but that doesn't make for a great story that then leads to the economics. The best
Mm.
movies, the best books were not repeated with part two,
Mm.
because it sold more
Mm.
tickets, it
Mm.
sold more books,
Yeah.
that type of a thing. So it's driven by the reactivity of economics, that some guy in Hollywood or some guy wherever wants another thing to be made so that they can make money on it, which is reactivity, because they need to survive better than this other producer that they're in competition with, because it's
Mm-hmm.
reactivity. So you see how you have all these cogs in this clock that are driving all these other things. But in life, you sometimes you never find out who the good guy and the bad guy is from day one till your last breath.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I also want to add that I forgot to tell, if you are new, a valence is pretty much a personality that you take on that isn't who you really are.
Yeah. It's a solution to a problem, which that problem at the very bottom is always is, how do I survive?
Yeah, and the reason why we
Mm.
know for a fact that it's not who you are is because all people are, well, not people, but thetans are basically good beings, which means that they don't operate off of aberration. They operate off of, analytical reasoning and this pretty much straight line, like this is what you do, this is what you don't do, kind of a thing. But again, it's not that black and white. But yeah, so villains, SPs, which is
Narcissists.
another one that an SP. I don't want to say an SP is basically a narcissist, but kind of
Kind of.
this big bad guy. Basically, I mean, you could probably explain it further, but they're all out of valence. That's the gist.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, and a Thetan has to have a game. In order to have a game, you have to agree that you don't know everything when you really do. And that's where the hilarity ensues in
Mm.
reactivities. You go, well, I got to have a game, so I'm going to have to not know how to survive. So you make a decision right there. Boom. I don't know how to survive. Now I have a game. Let's go play a game, whatever that is. And this goes on and I mean, this is just my reality of the reality of it goes on for squillions of millennia. And now you're here, and at one point in time you could create anything, and now you barely can create a paycheck because of your own
Mm.
decisions, postulates, drugs, etc. Because a Thetan's got to have a game. And this is something the Scientology girl wrestles with. Why do I have to keep playing this endless loop? Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, I would say so.
Oh my God, I agree. I
when
mean,
I
the
mean,
end is so definite. Like, why go through it all? Just stop
yeah,
it now.
yeah. And for me, it's not really apathetic. It's just,
Mm.
thinking to myself, like,
Do I want to do this again?
yeah,
No.
I'm gonna have to learn all this
Yeah.
stuff again and go through puberty and boyfriends and confusion and then,
Lies and deceit and
yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, and it's no different than you reading. You have a favorite genre of book. How many times are you going to have to read about if you're into sci-fi, this galactic war and this oppression, or it's adventure and it's this wizard and these factions fighting against each other for this, and there's an evil king and all of this stuff, and give me something new,
yeah.
is what you're saying. that isn't that isn't reactive fighting reactivity, because I mean, if there was no reactivity, okay, let's just hypothetically say if there was no reactivity and you didn't have to put up with that aspect, would it be more enticing to come back again in the next life if it was all unicorns, rainbows, and roses?
Judging from, and I'm sorry to
Yes.
start of Scientology, when you go and you have a look at the people who are quote unquote enlightened, um, they all believe that none of them are coming back here. Why? Because they don't see a point. Because the their mentality is that all of this stuff is a creation of the mind,
Mhm.
right? So that includes the game, that includes freedoms, barriers, and purposes. We're all creating this stuff. Therefore, it is an illusion. Therefore, it is silly if you are enlightened, there, there wouldn't be a reason to continue playing.
Mhm.
So I would say enlightenment equals non-reactivity equals why the fuck would I want to do that?
Well, yeah, if
I
you
think also,
go ahead.
sorry, I think also like if you consider the efforts we're making within ourselves, because we're not making efforts outside of ourselves. So we're not making efforts um, to make change around us. We're making efforts to make change within us. Therefore, around us will change. And I think like the more you sort of self-discover and in that sense, like you guys have both experienced the reduction of the reactive mind, and it's not a one-stop shop. Like it does require some kind of some effort to continue that because things still do occur in life. But how much have you achieved within yourselves just by reducing the reactive mind? And then there are moments where you're like, yeah, I could do this again. Yeah, I will do this again.
Mhm.
What else can I do with my body when it's so in control of its source and its force? And that's what makes it appealing to come back to master this thing we carry around with us. Hey, which does include the reduction of reactive impulses, reactive
Yeah, your own
um,
self-created burden.
actions. Yeah.
Yes, Scientology girl.
I mean, I
Roll.
no, that was
Did I
not
say
an
something
eye
wrong?
No?
roll.
Okay.
I was
She didn't roll her
genuinely
eyes. I take
going
it
to
back.
laugh.
I take it back. I take it back.
No, no, this was more like just like a, I don't know, man, because I mean, realistically, like if you didn't, it's okay maybe to have, like I said, some reactivity because then you still want to survive, you still want to do things and stuff. But if you don't have any, what would be the purpose? If you saw nothing, because right now our reactive mind is creating barriers, boundaries, right? So if you just had freedoms, guess what? That's no longer a game, which means that you don't want to play anymore,
Mhm.
right? So what would be the purpose?
What if it opened other doors though? Like
Other
what
doors to
if
what?
whatever you want? Like let's say like a
But
lot of
why
those
would you want
reactions
them
and those
though?
aberrations. Yeah, but hear me
I'm
out
over here
first. You
chuckling.
know. Like what if because of our reactions and our aberrations we're bound to other potentials that we can't even fathom yet?
That has
What if
been
there's
my
a
point.
whole other side?
Yeah.
What if there's a whole other side that
Mhm.
due to reactive mindsets you can't even fathom? I don't know, whatever it could be. Like imagine being able to be so in one with this planet. There's a magic there that we can't even comprehend.
Mhm.
Being in oneness with the nature that exists on this weird, bizarre place. To touch an animal and to be able to communicate with it, to be able to, go for a swim in the ocean and actually be as the ocean. Like they're things our human bodies are yet to experience
Mhm.
with our reactive minds,
Mhm.
and you can't tell me that that would not be appealing. We might
Mhm.
have moments of those with wild animals and pets, but they're only moments. But imagine being, completely
In
um,
tune.
in tune,
Mhm.
and then once you accomplish that, what's after that?
Right. I was just thinking, I mean, and to what degree is it, you go, okay, well, that just happened. It was really cool. Now what? Go
I
ahead.
can
Go.
answer this.
I saw you looking at the tone scale. I was like, okay, okay, she's putting it in the chamber and she's locking the bolt. Here it comes.
Look,
All
basically,
right, I could
Arthur,
take it. I could take it.
what you just described there was pretty much, I'm going to say, between aesthetics and exhilaration on the tone scale. So, they're still not above there in places like serenity of beingness. So, all that beautiful stuff that you could experience, right? That would still be a form of pleasure, which,
Sensation is what you're
yes,
saying.
it's sensation. So going beyond that would be
Definitely.
having probably just like this peace, where you don't have this need to do that stuff. Because here's the thing, you can go and do that, right? You touch an animal and you have this amazing experience and whatever. So what are you going to want to do then? Well, you're going to want to keep touching that animal. Therefore, it is still a reactive thing. Whereas if you want to go as far as serenity of beingness, again, it's just being. And I know that's I mean, me sitting over here now, like I can't just be and be comfortable, because okay, maybe while I'm talking it's fine, but if I just have to sit here and not do anything, like it's a little bit of a struggle, because I want to go and get myself breakfast, or I want to go and do something, because that's the part of the reactive mind is just do. But I think there are levels, and this is like obviously on the extreme end. Like if like it was a hypothetical where if we didn't have any sort of reactive mind whatsoever, but the fact that we have some. I mean, do you care about your status in life, John?
Not really.
But you kind of do, though, because you
I like helping people.
right. But
I like being able to cause good effects on people as an auditor and a source of illumination to what real Scientology, the subject, can offer people. I'm not really interested in.
but you have some pride, don't you?
Well, yeah, I have some pride in what I do as opposed to being a bus driver or a ditch digger or something like that. I mean, I think it's a noble cause.
Right. And you prefer sometimes expensive tastes rather than just,
I don't know what you're
humble
talking
sort of
about.
living. Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. So, yeah, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but that kind of thing. And I have my own things as well, where
Yeah.
it's like, no, I don't want to
Right.
be perceived this way. It's the same thing. When we care about positions in life, when we care about how people perceive us and all that stuff, it's the same thing. It's all just a bunch of reactivity.
Is it
It is.
having this?
It is.
Okay. So,
Well, I'm going
go.
through the Purif
Yeah.
and I'm making myself extremely uncomfortable. Like if I had to, I would have given this up like week
It's
one.
it's a
Like the
have it
amount of
is a
effort.
happiness,
Oh my God.
uncomfortability.
And the reason I'm doing it is I want to see what happens on the other side of this. Like
Yeah.
if I'm no longer aberrated by chemical substances, and they've all led to where I'm at to some degree.
Hmm.
Like all those decisions I've made working with chemicals, consuming chemicals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they all have a mind piece of their own, which is reactive as well. Um, and as I'm going through this process, I'm realizing the reality of how reactive those chemicals actually are. They're physical engrams as opposed to mental engrams
Hmm.
affecting my mind.
Hmm.
Now, without those in my body, what does my game look like once I've done? And that's what makes it exciting for me. Like
Hmm.
right now, I can't say I'm enjoying it one bit,
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
but
I mean,
there is something inside of me that is enjoying
yeah,
it.
yeah. I'm the same way with what I do too. It is,
Yeah,
I mean, it's difficult to put up with other people's reactivity and uh, you know, get them to a point to where they can captain their own ship and you don't have to do that for them. I mean, it is really difficult. Just like it is to experience the phenomena you're experiencing. It's really difficult, but at the end of it, I realize just as much in dealing with other people because as Hubbard says in the Axioms, it's a matter of viewpoints, and the interaction of those viewpoints are what keep me coming back and make it interesting to you. Okay, so what is this experience? I'm not even talking about this universe. What is this experience as a whole? Scientology girl, you're like not not feeling it,
Yeah.
coming back, and Arthur and
Mhm.
I are more of a like I can't quite put my finger on this, and we're sort of like detectives, and you are, and admittedly you are just as much that way as we are in all of the things that you research and study. And
100%.
when you get
Yeah.
on something, I mean, I won't hear a word out of her for hours, and she's there on her iPad
Mm.
or her laptop on her iPad, or looking into something and all of this stuff. So it's there,
Yeah.
but
Look,
but it isn't at
my
the same time.
my thing is this, okay?
I totally get it. Hey, I totally get it.
My thing is this. It's not like, here's the thing. It might come across in presentation as I'm in apathy and I don't want to come back and I'm just tired of it and just, no,
Mm-hmm.
there's no out into none of that stuff, which is another thing that you'll need to explain.
Yeah.
But the point is that I'm not depressed, and it's not that I'm not enjoying life. It's that analytically, from everything that I've researched and studied
Yeah,
and things that I've
100%.
seen,
Why would I want to do
it
this
just
again?
doesn't make sense
Yeah, I
to do
understand
it.
that. I
That's a
That's
really
understand.
that's
good
all.
point because then when you do bring sensation into it, that kind of takes that away a bit, doesn't it?
That's your
What do you
point.
mean?
Arthur, you want to explain
So
that?
so it's like so you know when you have those days where it's fantastic. It's just a fantastic day. The ARC's high. The start of your day ended just as well at the end of the day. The day was just in perfect harmony all the way. There was not an issue, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the days that you want to continue.
Yes.
But it's funny how that little voice does linger on.
Yeah.
It seems to come back. It's like this little voice that just comes back every now and then, where it's so logical you can't
Yeah.
deny it.
Yeah,
When is the shoe going to drop? In other words,
because the thing is, like, I mean, I can
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
remember one of my favorite days I think it was last month or so, was, well, okay, that sounds ridiculous, but I really enjoyed myself on this day. So we were playing games and I'd ordered McDonald's, and it was just like a very nice, pleasurable, low-key, enjoyable day.
Mm,
But at the end of the day, those those moments, okay, fine, they might equate to maybe some good memories, or whatever, but they essentially mean nothing because they haven't contributed to anything.
ah, aha, aha.
What?
So you know as well as I do, production is the basis
uh-oh.
of morale.
Yes.
Okay.
But even when I'm productive, okay, fine, I've produced products, but they're physical universe things. I've gotten some money to buy my McDonald's and play some games. Do you understand?
Right. So
Like,
is that is that a product in and of itself? A product of sensation, the creaminess of the McDonald's sandwich, the savoriness of the fries or the hash brown.
well,
Your favorite is a hash brown?
there are sensation, and I guess the point really is that
Not that I'm trying to rub anything in your face. I mean, these are viewpoints. We're going back and forth, and people that listen to this, because we're trying to exchange viewpoints with ourselves, between ourselves, for other people to, for them to enjoy this podcast, talk to other people, spark conversation.
I guess my point is that it's not that it's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's that it's pointless. Because
Is that not reactive?
that it's pointless,
Yeah.
I think it's
Or you,
completely analytical.
or you're
Because
not reacting to all of the negativity in the universe that says don't come back here. It sucks.
no, because like I said, that day was a good day. So if I had that viewpoint, I would be like, yeah, I just want more of those good days, which in my opinion would be reactive, because then you're trying to grasp for something that obviously isn't attainable because there's freedoms, barriers, and purposes. So my thing is that once you see the game and the trick that we are inside this thing to basically run, it's kind of like we're in a cage.
Yeah, we're in a snow globe.
We're in a cage, and sure, the food that you get, it's really enjoyable, and the wheel that you run on, it's enjoyable too sometimes. And then you have bad days, like, oh, maybe you got a seed stuck in your throat or something, whatever the fuck
Right.
hamsters do.
Heimlich is applied.
But the point is really that it's not good or bad. Yes, those experiences are good and they're enjoyable and etc. etc. But they're not. For me, it's a surface level thing. Like, yes, you can have all the sensation and you can have the good with the bad and make kids and do whatever the fuck you think you're supposed to do, and that's all fine and fair.
Mm-hmm.
But it does not equate to what you could actually experience, which is complete and utter joy, just being.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get to that stage, you won't need this mock-up.
Why
You won't
wouldn't you?
need this stuff. It just doesn't make sense. It's like it's a
Well, you
substitute.
kind of
Physical
do,
universe is a substitute.
because you kind of do though, because like without this mock-up, you couldn't experience exactly what you were saying.
Right,
It's
but no, you
impossible.
could. You can. You absolutely can. It might not have the same manifestations. Like, look, you're not gonna experience a psilocybin high when you're there, but you are gonna experience peace. And ultimately, I think that's what everybody really wants is peace. Because whether you're trying to attain pleasure or you're trying to avoid pain, you're not in peace. You're not in fully present to experience that stuff.
So,
But then when we do achieve that, then what are we going to want?
Well,
Some
that's the
kind of
thing. You're
discomfort.
thinking about being a Thetan in a body that must play a game. There is something above that, and that is the thing that I'm talking about. Is you not needing the game.
so and this is all just for the sake of conversation. There's no
Yep.
right or wrong answer,
Arthur,
no
you're
right or
wrong.
wrong. right or wrong viewpoint.
That's twice
But-
now.
so if a being, not a person, if a being without a body was completely at cause all the time, that is what you are inferring, correct? You're at cause and you're not at effect because you know everything and cannot be the effect of it, and you would be fine with that. Is that correct?
I would say so. This is why I don't really believe that if there was a creator, God, that he would create this thing to just observe and
He has a
help
sixth sense of
people
humor.
and stuff like that, and all of that stuff is because he would drop down from serenity of just being. He would need to play a game, which means he's not omnipotent. He's not this, he's not that. He has desires, and his desire is to watch people so that and make sure they're good boys and little girls so that they can go into heaven and serve him and worship him. It's insanity. So that's why, I mean, look, I have seen the beingness that has come from, and they might look like boring people when you go and you look at these gurus and stuff and Eckhart Tolle and stuff, but you can see that they've achieved that beingness where they'll never fall into the trap of addiction or wanting or must have, can't have, or all of these things, the ego that says no, I must be right, because that's part of the symptom of having a reactive mind. Is there's this rightness, whether it presents itself in I need to stay alive and that makes me right, or I need to tell my mother-in-law she's a bitch, like it's that kind of a thing. So yeah, I really just feel strongly that if we could erase the reactive mind, that's where we would be, and we wouldn't need this thing.
Are you saying on an individual basis, or are you saying on a fourth dynamic, the world universe at large?
That are you asking if I think we all need it?
Well, I guess that's what I'm asking.
I do, because for as long as I mean, let's put it this way. I mean, Aaron Hubbard said this is a prison planet. I believe it's a prison universe.
Mm-hmm.
and we're creating that universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that might seem like a very jaded point of view, but I mean, again, you can experience good things and bad things on this planet, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just pointless.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, the biggest trick for me is that you think that there's a point. You think that life is meaning. You give life meaning. But I honestly think it has no meaning. And as soon as you start associating meaning to things, that's when you fall in the trap. Because if you have goodness, you must inadvertently have badness. If you assign something, if you have judgment on something like this is good or that's bad, you have to have it with the other. So then enters into the compulsion to avoid or to gain something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where reactive mind comes in. And that's what we're doing in every second of every moment. We're trying to strive for attainment of pleasure, avoidance of pain. Trying to be more right, doesn't want to be wrong.
Artie, you look like you have something you want to
Well,
say.
how much of that is, yeah, how much of that though is taught though? Like the hard thing is like everything we're discussing today has been taught to us somehow. And the ability to have like our own minds around um, anything really, like there's nothing we've discussed so far that isn't us wholeheartedly as human beings. We've either read it, heard it, contemplated it as billions and billions of people before us have. Um, you know, everything we're discussing tonight is not a new topic at
Right.
all. You know, it's poets through millennia have written about it. You know, there's been symbols drawn about it. There's been, um, you know, we're asking the questions of questions that may be completely unanswerable. Um, and you know, there's a submissive nature that gets attached to that because, like, asking questions can be really reactive as well. Um, which is really hard because, like, how else do you learn and how else do you know?
Mm.
How else do you create that inner peace? Um, and I don't know, I suppose as far as like removing reactive aspects of the mind, it opens other doors because, like, you know, in your old paradigm, you do a heap of auditing and you remove a lot of engrams around your reactive mind. Then you can start asking new questions, and those new questions are going to bring up new reactive responses. You know what I mean? And like it's a real tricky one because to get to your own source, whatever that is and whatever that looks like, I think is half the challenge of being here. Um, and you know, like when you check out, you'll never know, and that enough might be a regret to pull you back. You know what I mean?
Well, that's
Um,
This has gotten really interesting.
well. The thing is, I don't believe that. I
because that'll
think
create
that
a new reaction. Um,
if okay, sure, like you might think that you won't know, but the point is, like, what use is it to you to know things like, I mean, okay, look, there is
it actually
obviously a
isn't.
lot of
To answer your question, everything I think I know is literally useless.
right.
Absolutely useless. But
It,
what I choose to do means everything to me.
here's how I see it.
Free will.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep. That's where it's at.
here's how I see it. The Imagine if you were the only living being on this planet, and uh there was nothing like flowers. There wasn't any sort of life at all, right? What would there be? What could you possibly learn about it? Okay, sure, there's maybe cool buildings and whatever. Even, the ocean would kind of be, let's say there was no moon or something, and the ocean was kind of just static or whatever. Aside from the fact that it would be pretty lonely, Also,
I don't know.
I
And
think
the reason I don't know is because if I try and create that in my mind from the viewpoint I have now up until this point in my life, I could never potentially understand the full reality of that
right,
because I know too much now um, to to create such a scenario. I can create how I'd potentially feel knowing what I know now to put myself in a situation like that. But if I was
right,
born into that, it's an impossible question.
right. Well, my my point with that is that we life gives life meaning. So anything that has a sentience about it, anything that can grow and manipulate matter, right? Things like plants, vegetables, animals, humans, all of that stuff, it gives life meaning. Otherwise, the earth is just kind of meh. It's just kind of there. There's not there isn't really a proper like game, right? You lose your ego entirely. Obviously, that's one of the things, because who are you trying to impress? There is nobody. So when you're walking down the street and you're wearing a Rolex, who's there to impress? Nobody's going to give you admiration. And that's one of the ways, obviously, again, that we, well, it's part of our reactivity. But the point really is that,
Yep.
so life gives life meaning. Therefore, and I also believe that everything that everything that's out there, whether it's a plant or a being, we're of the same source. Now, Aaron Hubbard, he didn't say that. He basically said we're individuals, we're thetans, blah blah. But what I believe is that we come from the same source, because how is it that you can be a basically good being and I can be a basically good being? There's got to be a similar source out there, right? That's that's what I consider. Now, if you consider that, if you really understand that, then you'll see that all these things that are physical universe stuff, all this the matter and the manifestations in which matter can exist, the beauty that's on planet Earth in flowers and in birds and fish and trees, etc. All of that stuff is just a manifestation of a beingness of that source of life. And if you can understand your own source of life, you will not need to resort to trying to see and discover and understand, etc., the external sources. So therefore, you give life meaning. So if I give life meaning, then it's what it is to me. So I guess for me, it's if I know myself, then I don't need to know anything else. And that's not coming from an egotistical standpoint. It's coming from not this identity, Lisa, that has needs and wants and enjoys playing the game, etc. It's what the stuff I'm made of. I hope I'm making sense.
Arthur?
The only thing I can really think of is the 8008. You know, from infinity to everything you currently know being zeroed out, and then once you're zero, then you'll be in full creation again, and you'll create something completely new.
I mean,
That's all I
that's
have to
if you
say.
want to. That's
Right.
the thing, because
Well,
you've got to
I,
drop
I
from
think.
serenity to postulates. Oh, I want to create
Well, look,
something, to games. Okay, let's create a game. But then you're dropping down the tone scale. This is why I'm saying beingness
but
doesn't need a tone scale.
but everything is reactive based, right? Like, say, even the plants will react to their environment. Whether
Right.
it's sunny, whether it's wet, whether it's windy, whether it's dry, it's all reaction based. So there's a force that occurs that you can't just stop.
I think you can.
It's impossible. It's an impossibility. One day you will stop, um, but until then, you could have no plans for tomorrow and something will occur. Even if it's sitting in bed all day watching TV, it's still something that occurred. It's a reaction of some kind, and that reaction could be due to just being tied with life. But then one day you have a spark of energy and you're like, oh, I'm going to go for a walk. It's a reaction to what? It's a reaction to resting.
Or a change in viewpoint.
Or a change in viewpoint as well. Yeah. Because that bed will take you in two directions. It may make you worse, or it may make you brighter. And that's a matter of perspective as well. Define worse, define good, define
It's all
evil,
relative. Yeah.
like all those words. Yeah. And it is all relative.
Okay,
You
I
know,
can
and,
use
and we
Scientology,
can,
yeah, once you're done.
yep, yep. But I mean, everything's in motion and it only works in one direction ultimately. I think our brains can think so far into the future, that it definitely takes us out of the now. But then we can think so far in the past, it takes us out of the now. And it is the now being present that makes this life, oh, how did I get here?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, look at the sky. Wow, geez, the air smells incredible. Even with that diesel, I can still smell fresh air. You know, look at all those people. What are they doing? The curiosities that can occur just from being in the now. Whereas if you jump so far into the future that you know I'm going to die, you know that can do two things. That can give you a drive to live stronger, or it can give you the drive to just start giving up.
Right.
And they're
Yeah.
both reactions. They're both healthy react. Well, again, it's a matter of perspective. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
they're both reactions.
You said something interesting about how the relationship, excuse me, between motion and the stuff. So in Scientology terms, to make my point more sort of I don't know,
Clear.
understood, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Hubbard says I think it's in the Scientology axioms, that time is the most aberrative quality that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So time equals motion, and it also is part of the physical universe.
Mm-hmm.
So if time is aberrative, that means that it is reactive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, why is it aberrative to start with?
if the physical universe is aberrative, then going outside of the physical universe should mean that we no longer have the reactive mind, therefore no longer, I don't want to say the clear cognition, but we're no longer doing that. Therefore, making sense, you
Mm-hmm.
no longer need the game.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. I'm staying out of this.
Yep, yep. My brain's just like,
All right. Well, I
Well,
guess
you want to be you're coming down to what it comes down to is in your viewpoint is what need reactivity. You don't if you don't want to respond to reactivity, you don't have to be in the universe. That's what you're saying.
say that again.
If you don't want to
that's an
respond,
interesting point.
you
Yeah.
don't want to respond to reactivity, then don't be in the universe, because the
Mm,
universe is full of reactions. I mean, whether I mean, you can't the wind blowing or the sea churning. Yeah, that's a reaction to something. It's not a reactive mind reaction. Now, one could go as far as to say the entire universe is one big reactive mind. I wouldn't
mm,
necessarily disagree with that.
Mm.
If I mean, whether Hubbard said it or not, if I found it to be true, then okay. And yeah, it is something that persists, therefore there is a lie behind it, or it would cease to be.
It puts us at effect,
Yeah, it
basically.
mm.
puts us at effect, and you're like, fuck it, I'm not going to be at effect, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah,
That's basically what you're
Mhm.
saying.
but it's not an apathetic viewpoint. It is just, it is a
It's a
Sure.
conclusion.
choice.
It is a conclusion based
Yep.
on looking at things and observing. Hey, this stuff is pretty pointless.
Right. I mean, you can only play so much chess, and you go, okay, I've had enough, I don't want to play chess anymore. Same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
and
Yep.
and
Yep.
I understand that. Other beings, I mean, that's why we play video games, and when the character runs out of life and dies, we respawn by pressing triangle on the game button, and okay, now I'm going to go back in there, and I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to conquer this Balrog and this shambling shapeshifter, blah blah blah, so on and so forth, until you do, and then you go, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next?
And what do you
Okay,
do?
what's
You
next?
do it differently every
Every
time, don't you?
time, right? You do it differently every
You
time
do
until
it
you figure
differently.
out, yeah, until you
Yeah.
figure out the code to do that. I mean, it begs the question: what does a captain of industry do that doesn't know anything about Scientology or anything, and they're just a being, a thetan, and they die? What do they do next time? How do I mean, it's that affluence thing. How
Mm.
do you top affluence in a universe where you've got more money than you could ever do anything with? What next? Do they come
Yeah.
back? Probably.
Not exactly.
Do they do the same thing?
You've peaked within the physical universe, so why?
Well, and you to Hubbard's point, goals, problems, mass. Who or what would oppose a captain of industry? That's what happens. And then who or what would oppose this back and forth, lifetime after lifetime? You're the lion tamer, the circus owner, the banker that funds the circus, and it goes back and forth, goals, problems, mass, and this is how this thing happens.
And this is exactly what I'm saying, though, is that you've had all these lifetimes, right?
Yeah,
You've
been
done
there,
so
done that.
many and been so many things, and okay, sure, you might not fully 100% remember every single scenario. I think it would quite honestly probably drive you mad if you did, but
Because it always ended the same.
right. But when you look at that, you start seeing how the the fabric of the messed universe is so fickle and so just surface level plastic stuff.
Mhm.
Whereas you've always been around, you and your essence and what you are,
Mhm.
so get more of what that is.
Mhm.
Don't look externally for your position in life and this and that, and because none of it's really relevant. It's whatever the fuck you are that you're trying to get to, and I think that is key. and and the reason why I feel like I know it is because, well, we're on a journey to try and rid ourselves of the reactive mind, and I feel like there are all these things. I mean, okay, sure, you can say reactivity is just getting angry or getting sad or whatever, but it's so much deeper than that. I mean, the whole rightness and wrongness thing. I mean, this is the reason why the ego exists, why pride, why compulsions exist. All of this stuff. Now I'm supposed to use whatever. So it's like, okay, so this is what this life is comprised of. What am I comprised of?
Mhm. Well, and as a subject of reactivity, minus any reactivity or reaction from anything else, and you've been there, done that, seen that. I mean, as from a Scientological standpoint, we've pretty much done anything and everything that we could possibly imagine, because we can imagine it and think we haven't done it when we really have.
Right. And what worth is that? What is it worth?
Well,
We don't even retain those memories. So what is it really worth?
well, I mean, if you can imagine it, then maybe you are retaining it and you're just looking at it as something that, it's like what we do. I have an idea, and you mentioned it the day before.
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, imagine we're hamsters and we say, hey, yesterday I had this amazing day on this wheel. Like he bought it, and my owner bought it, and it was pink, and I really enjoyed it. And then you're like, yeah, last week I did the same thing, but I ran at this speed. It's like, what does it fucking matter, really?
Mhm.
That goal is no different from our goal to reach success, or have kids and marry and all this stuff. I mean, sure, we give it meaning. I guess that's really fundamentally the most important thing is your own happiness, but you think that's what makes you happy. And I feel like it's just kind of a trap, because you're looking for external things to make you happy instead of just being happy and whole yourself. Now, on that point, I'm not saying I'm there, because if I was, I think my life would look a lot different, but I know that should be the goal.
Mhm. Well, it's important to note that
At least mine, anyway. I don't want to evaluate for everybody else.
right. It's important to note that uh, you know, every being has a different viewpoint on things, and what's real to that being is based off of what's relative to that being, where they've
Right.
been and what they've done and what they know and what they don't know, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But as far as reactivity goes, uh, it's something that um, definitely makes for an interesting game, but you don't have to be the effect of it. You can be at cause and play the games that you want to play using Scientology, independent Scientology technology, and Dianetics technology. So we're going to go ahead and bring this to a close because Artie's going to have to go here in a minute. So we hope everybody's enjoyed this podcast as far as giving viewpoints on reactivity and in media and our lives. And we're very interested to hear what you have to say about it. And being at cause is very important, and you can be at cause over the reactive mind and dispatch it as well as other reactive minds that might be affecting you by understanding it so that you don't go the adverse effect of it. That's really the whole point of this. And that's the wonderful thing about life is viewpoints, huh? Artie,
And
anything
there's
in
definitely
closing?
not a shortage of them.
Yeah, there's definitely
I
not a
think we've
shortage.
discussed, like, I've really enjoyed, like, there's so many different angles you can look at it, and like all of us have our own reactive responses to some degree, and it also shows an element of an individual's beingness as well. Um, we're all where we're at for whatever reasons.
No matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think, on one hand, that's what makes this world as joyous as it is, and then in some cases, not so joyous
Mm-hmm.
because of the amount of perspectives and viewpoints there are out there. It's just infinite.
Scientology.
Oh, I've spoken way too much probably. I hope nobody feels like my viewpoint was asserted. I'm passionate about this stuff in my own journey, but yeah.
It's valid though. It's very valid.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I endeavor to understand viewpoints, and I try to listen to, especially the older generations and what their viewpoints are and what they've experienced, and try and take that into my own. And you know, experience is a wonderful thing, reactive or analytical or both, because data is data no matter what. So
Yeah.
for Arthur, Scientology Girl, and myself, we'll see you later this week for another podcast. And we really hope you enjoyed this one. I know I did. So take care, everybody.
It was good fun.
Namaste. And we love you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.